All right. Welcome to another exciting episode of the MTG Arena uh, historic deck techs. So, my name is MTG Anonymous as always, and we're going to get straight into this deck. This deck is called Wild Revelations. This deck is all about ramping into massive creatures, cheating out threats, and we're just going to overwhelm our opponents. We're going to use cards like Fight Rigging, Cabaretti Revels, Korvold, Fae-Cursed King, and then Ziatora, the Incinerator are going to be our key cards. But let's go over the cards, and then we will go over the game plan. First, we have Dig Up. We're almost never going to use the Cleave ability. We want the basic lands, since we don't have many of them. This will allow us to always, not always, if we get in our opening hand, it will almost always be the first card that we play because we have a lot of green mana. But for green, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. If for some reason this shows up later and we have enough mana, we use the Cleave ability, which says we'll play it for that anyway, and we'll remove the square cards, or the square brackets in the card. So now it says search your library for a basic land, search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Perilous Iteration for red-green. It's a sorcery. Seek, which Seek says to put a card from our library at random into our hand. Seek a card with mana value 2 or less, which means it's going to be either Liquid Metal Coating or Dig Up or another Perilous. Oh, and then a mana value 3 or greater, which we have a lot of those. Discard those cards at the beginning of your next turn's end step. So Perilous Iteration we want to play after we have preferably 5 mana. If we don't, we'll lose whatever the bigger thing is and just play the smaller. If we do, cool. Liquid Metal Coating for 2. Tap target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types until end of turn. If you saw my last video, you know it's coming with this card. Fight Rigging for 2 and a green is an enchantment. Hideaway. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then if you control a creature with power 7 or greater, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Preferably, Planewide Celebration is the card that goes under, but I didn't explain what Hideaway is. So Hideaway is when this permanent enters battlefield, look at the top X card, where X is the number after Hideaway, so in this case 5 cards. Exile 1 face down, put the rest of them on the bottom in a random order. Horizon Seeker for 2 and a green. We get a creature human, 3/2, boast. 1 in a green, search your library for a basic land card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And then boast is we can only do this when we attack, and we can only do it once each turn. Retrieve for 2 and a green. Return up to 1 target creature card and 1 up target non-creature permanent from your graveyard to your hand. So Perilous Iteration is the reason why this card's in here. So obviously we're going to have to exile retrieve if we do use that ability, but we're going to lose whatever card we get big from Perilous Iteration. This allows us to grab that back, and then depending on how much we have, we'll be able to play it again. So yeah, that's why I said Perilous Iteration. We don't really care if we're not able to play the card, because we'll just use Retrieve to grab it back. Settle the Wild for 2 and a green. You seek a basic land card and put it on the battlefield tapped. Then seek a permanent card with mana value equal to the number of lands you control. Why is this important? Because obviously we want a bunch of lands. Once we get to the 6, that means we can grab some pretty good permanent cards. We are also able to kill our own lands, so we're able to control how many lands we have for this ability specifically. Cabaretti Revels for 1 red-green. It's an enchantment. Whenever you cast a creature spell, seek a creature card with lesser mana value, and then put it onto the battlefield. So what is up with that card? Well, obviously, we got some big creatures, so our 5 drops we never want to play. We want to play our 6 drops and then force a 5 drop to come out. So yeah, that's basically what this is for. Binding of the Old Gods for 2 black-green. This is our removal So I haven't really gone over sagas in this um, YouTube channel. At least I don't think I have. So every time a saga enters, you put a lore counter on it, and then after your draw step, you add an additional lore counter. Do whatever it says to do when you get to that lore counter. So for one, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. So this is our removal. Uh, on the second turn, search the library for a forest card, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. And then 3, creatures you control gain death touch until end of turn. So really, we just want those first 2. Again, we want to get to 6 or 5 mana and use Settle the Wilds as soon as possible, so that way we're able to grab one of our 5-drop permanents or 6-drop permanents. So yes, this is really just in here for the second ability, but the first ability is good for cards or decks that have not much ramp. Death Sprout, pretty much the exact same for Binding of the Old Gods. Death Sprout is 1 black, black, green. Destroy target creature card, or destroy target creature. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped. So we have enough basic lands to where this will almost always be relevant. So yeah, because this deck has 13, if I reckon. So it's almost impossible that we won't have a basic land card for this deck. It has happened once or twice, but regardless, it's really good. The Karn combo again. You've seen the Karn combo. You know what Karn's in here for. If you don't, please watch the last video because we went over it. So I'm not going to read this one again. Hollowinge Wrangler, which also turns into Hollowinge Beast. So Elemental, when it enters the battlefield, seek a land card. So we grab it, put it, get a random land card, put in our hand. Discard a land card. We can conjure a card named Hollowhinge Beast into our hand, and then we may also activate this ability while it's in our graveyard. So we have a lot of lands. If we get to the point where we don't really need them anymore, we can discard them, play the Hollowinge Beast, and boom. It really does what it says it does. Korvold, Fae-Cursed King is one of my favorite cards ever. I have a commander deck, which I actually will probably go over in this channel. But, so for 2 black, red, green, legendary creature Dragon Noble, it's a 4/4 with flying. When it enters or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. When you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold and draw a card. Why does that matter? So, we can continuously get +1/+1 counters on Korvold and then use the ability from Fight Rigging once we get to that point. So, because we want a creature that's 7 power or greater, obviously it's going to take a couple turns for Korvold to get to that point. But we also have a lot of lands. So, like I said, we want to control the number of lands that we have in this on the battlefield, so that way we can use Cabaretti Revels or Settle the Wilds when we get to that point. So yeah, Korvold is our way to do that, and then we will almost always be able to get it out. Golos Tireless Pilgrim, if we get to the point where we can't keep our lands to a certain number, then Golos is great. But for 5, when it enters battlefield, search your library for a land card, put it on the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. We will almost always grab the World Tree with this ability. And then for 2, Wooburg, which is white, blue, black, red, green, exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn without paying the mana cost. So we're going to be cheating stuff in. Preferably if we're if we're able to cheat in our big cards, so Korvold, Hollowhinge Wrangler, Grave Waker, all of these things are basically what we want to be able to do. So yeah, Golos is one of the key cards in this deck as well. Grave Waker does its own thing as well. So for 4 black black, it's a 5/5 bird spirit with flying. For 5 black black, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So again, if Perilous Iteration throws a card into the graveyard, one of our creatures, we're able to use this ability to grab them back from the graveyard. So that means Golos would be able to trigger as many times as we want to if we sacrifice it with Korvold. And we just pretty much play the game that way. Bootlegger Stash. Lands you control have tap, create a treasure token. So, this card is really in here for Korvold. Why do I say that? Because every turn we can tap a land and create a creature token, and then that allows us to use Korvold trigger again when we attack or when it enters. This also allows us to control how many lands we have because, as I said, we want to have a certain number until really this or Ziatora come out. This is a really important card for the deck. Ziatora the Incinerator for 3 black, red, green. It's a legendary creature, demon, dragon, 6/6 with flying. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, it deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. So why is that in here, you may ask? So Gravewaker's ability is 7 mana. So every 2 turns, we can grab a creature that we threw away back, especially using Bootlegger Stash as well. This allows us to make tokens with those lands, and so now we have even more. Ziatora is a really good card, really good with ramp. The Kami War, this is another saga. I explained what that is. So for 1 Wooburg, first you exile target non-permanent and opponent controls. Second, you return up to 1 other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then each opponent discards a card. And then 3, exile the saga, then return it to the battlefield, transform it into your control. If we use the Kami War, most of the time we want to return Golos back to our hand. We play Golos again, and then that allows us to put another land card onto the battlefield. So once this transforms, it becomes Gagachi Made Manifest. I can't pronounce that, but whatever. It's all colors. It has flying trample. When this creature attacks, defending player chooses a non-land card in your graveyard. You return that to your hand. This creature gets X plus X plus 0 until end of turn, where X is the mana value of that card. Again, recursion. I want to sacrifice as many things as I can. Our opponent are going to return them. We can make treasures. We can keep playing cards over and over again. Sheoldred Whispering 1 for 5 black black. It's a legendary praetor. Phyrexian for 6/6. It's a 6/6, excuse me. Swamp Walk at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from a graveyard to the battlefield, and then at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature of their choice. This card gets removed almost every single game. It's super annoying, but when it stays, because we don't have many creatures, we will just be able to continuously return creatures back from the graveyard. So this Gravewaker are going to pretty much try to keep each other on the board, and then we use those 2 to keep Golos, Korvold, Ziatora on the board. So yes, there are not many creatures in this deck. And then the final card in the main deck, Planewide Celebration for 5 green green. Choose 4. You may choose the same mode more than once. So create a 2/2 creature token that's all colors. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Proliferate or gain 4 life. Depending on what we have going on, Proliferate is usually the mode we want to choose with Korvold, since as soon as Korvold enters, it's going to have its own +1/+1 counter. But returning target permanent card from our graveyard to our hand is also helpful, and then creating 2/2 citizen tokens are good too. It really is a situational card. I've almost never seen it where we haven't had 7 land or 7 mana at a time. So yeah, this card works great. We have a lot of lands. There are no real utility lands other than the World Tree, but we have no gods, so there's no reason to mention the tapped ability. And then last is the sideboard. Obviously, we have all artifacts because we can grab them with Karn. So another copy of Liquid Metal Coating, because it doesn't make sense to have 4 of them in the deck. Weatherlight Completed for 2, as long as it has 4 or more Phyrexian counters on it. It's a Phyrexian creature in addition to its other types. When a creature dies, put a Phyrexian counter on it and then draw a card if it has 7 or more counters on it. If it doesn't, scry 1. So basically this allows us to draw cards every time a creature dies. Oh wait, Korvold makes us sacrifice creatures most of the time, so that gives this the counters, and then we would be able to either draw a scry, then we're able to return creatures back with Sheoldred or Gravewaker. Arcane Encyclopedia for 3. Then you pay 3, tap, draw a card. This is here just for long, grindy games. Karn can grab this as well. Burnished Heart for 3. it's a 2/2 artifact creature, elk, and then for 3, sacrifice this creature, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Again, this is for long grindy games. If we've gotten to the point where Cabaretti Rebels, or excuse me, if Settle the Wild isn't really good, then we will go grab Burnished Heart. Inspiring Sanctuary for 3. Non-artifact spells you cast have Improvise, and Improvise means we can tap artifacts to pay for the spell. Now, treasure tokens are very good for this card because we can tap the treasure tokens to use this ability as well. So that means the treasure tokens are acting as lands. So that means we have more of them. Metalwork Colossus, I have 2 of them, 2 different sets because I didn't have any wild cards, so I just grabbed what I had. So for 11, this is an artifact creature construct. This creature costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana cost of non-creature artifacts you control. So we have a lot of liquid metal coatings or some of the artifacts that we can grab from our graveyard. So most of the time this will equal 0. And then sacrifice 2 artifacts, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. So the 2 artifacts that we would sacrifice would either be 2 treasure tokens, because there are a lot of them that we can get, or Golos and another artifact, because we can just grab Golos back. So we've gone over that. Let's go over the strategy for this deck. So, key strategy is we're going to cheat stuff out using Fight Rigging Cabaretti Rebels. While we don't have many creatures, we'll get a free creature from the deck. This means that if we play Ziatora, that means Korvold or Golos are going to pop out of the deck. Gravewaker or Sheoldred will also cause one of the 5 drops to drop out of the deck. So good. We have a lot of ramp and a lot of mana fixing, so we're able to pull them out. We're able to pull our lands and mana out easy, so we're able to play things. And then using our graveyard, we have a few creatures, but using our graveyard and Korvold in conjunction, we can continuously just throw things away, put things back. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention that Korvold also draws us a card, so we have a lot of card draw in this deck. Win conditions, we're going to cheat things out early. We're going to use Korvold and Ziatora to destroy everything and draw a bunch of cards. We're going to recycle our threats endlessly. And then strengths and weaknesses, we cheat stuff in fast. We have big creatures, and we can recursion pretty much everything, so there's no deck that really bothers us per se. Graveyard hate will cause us to lose the game, though. Counterspells are annoying, even though we can get around those by just replaying stuff. And then aggro decks can overwhelm us if we're not able to get to that 5 mana fast enough. Grabbing ability stuff with Karn. Karn wants to grab Metalwork Colossus, the other liquid metal coating, Weatherlight Completed, or Burnished Heart. Pretty much in that order. Metalwork Colossus allows us to literally just play a big card for free. Playing the big card for free with Cabaretti Revels lets us grab another card. And then whether you like cheating stuff out, locking down the board, drawing a bunch of cards, every game is different. So if you have some wild cards, these rares that are in this deck are actually really fun to play. I highly recommend doing so. If you enjoyed this deck tech, hit the like button, subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments, what's your favorite cheat effect in Magic? So I would really say that the Seek ability in Arena is actually starting to grow on me. I hated it at first as one of the people that played just paper Magic, but now I actually really enjoy it, and I hope that they continue making fun Seek cards. Anyways, like I said, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.